This is a podcast presented by
Hard to Find Media.
Subscribe to Hard to Find Media on youtube.com/Hard to Find Media Network. This shit is free. Share it. Blast it.
You give me the sweetest taboo. You're giving me the sweetest taboo.
And welcome to The Hardy Boys, a podcast about the work of Tom Hardy, specifically the new BBC and FX co-produced limited prestige television series, Taboo.
Taboo.
Taboo. My name is Jason, my stalwart companion. Across the table from me,
Mac
Hamilton.
Hamilton.
And we, let's see, where to begin. We have some years of podcasting under our belt that have evaporated into the ether of the internet.
Tears in the rain,
Yes,
if you will.
Exactly, my friend. And that adventure was all about the work of the Dutch actor Rutger Hauer.
Yeah.
This is perhaps a similar project.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try and keep focused week to week following along on this television program. If it goes well, if people like it, maybe we'll carry on through to the...
Segue into the grander Tom Hardy filmography, but right now we have very specific things on our minds.
We got urgent business to attend to. We just...
Namely the most Tom Hardy project of all time, which is why this is the most sensible launching point for this endeavor in general.
Yes, so we should say, obviously, we're fans of Tom Hardy.
Huge fan.
He's an interesting actor.
One of the most interesting actors currently going. I mean, I think that there are any number of legitimate takes on Tom Hardy, but I think he also has captured sort of like, I don't know, the public imagination for a really sensible reason, because he is like legitimately like unique and has crazy instincts as an actor, which is why I was like excited about talking about his filmography, because it's so weird.
It's very weird, you know, and he's mainstream despite being such a weird actor.
Yeah. And I think my curiosity specifically about Taboo was the fact that he was like the principal dude driving the idea.
Right, yeah, let's get into why, like, who's behind the show.
Why this is the ultimate Tom Hardy thing is
Yeah.
that he's like a big part of the creative force of it, because it was his idea, and I think he pitched it to his dad, Chips Hardy, who's also a credited co-creator of the show.
Yeah.
And so they developed it, and then they went to Steve Knight, who of Locke and Peaky Blinders. And
2 projects with Tom Hardy. He's also done, he just wrote the movie Allegiance.
Right.
He did Pawn Sacrifice.
He's like a very prolific screenwriter.
I remember telling you this the other day, but I believe he co-created or created Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Right, you told me that.
Which is crazy.
That is utterly bonkers. Yeah. So he's had a interesting career, but as of late has been more famous for his like writing and directing work.
Yes.
Um,
and the other notable creator involved in this would be the executive producer,
Sir Ridley
Scott. Yes.
Yeah, which is interesting. Has Scott Free, his production company, done other like TV projects?
Seems like something we should have looked up, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Also, but it makes sense to me that Ridley Scott would like attach his name to this kind of project from the little bit that I've seen of it. Also, strange to me that Ridley Scott has not worked... No, they briefly have. Black Hawk Down.
Yeah,
okay, correcting myself.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's interesting because this is, like, Tom Hardy is he is a very notorious rep for being exacting about his work. And so, like, him being a guy creating character and world for himself, as a guy who loves to dig deep into some bizarro characters, I was just curious what that was going to be. Especially considering...
Now we know.
I mean, we have a taste, but
yeah.
Considering the lead up to this show was just, like, very...
esoteric advertisements?
Exactly what I was going to... Esoteric was the exact word I was going to say. Like, fascinating, but, like, not illuminating in the least.
No. Didn't give any indication of plot, really. Just, like, Here's Tom Hardy being scary in Victorian London. And I was like,
saying
I'm into
ominous
it.
shit to the dude from Brazil.
Yes. One bit of context that I was made aware of, and a little bit of reading up on the show, was that Tom Hardy specifically wanted to make it with the BBC, since that's where he started out in his career.
Oh.
So he wanted to, like, that's why he's even bothering doing TV. So he wanted to do, like, a full circle thing and be like, all right, I'm going to pay my dues and go back to
Fascinating.
the BBC, yeah.
Huh. That is interesting. I did not know that.
Because he obviously doesn't need to be doing this right now. He's a huge movie star.
He's Mad Max.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, no. But on the other hand, like, at this point, like, it doesn't matter if you, like, Tom Hiddleston and shit is...
I mean, well, I just won a Golden Globe for that.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
I still want to watch that. The John Le Carre show?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Anyways, I don't think that there's any reason not to do a TV show because, like, so many people are going to absorb it and, like, get involved in it potentially if it catches on, which maybe brings us to, like, let's recap the show and see if...
about to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, so, yeah, we begin, it's already, like, a super cinematic show. The first shot is, like, an insane, like, aerial shot of a ship. I don't know if that was CG assisted or what.
Right. Yeah, presumably.
I believe it's Hardy arriving in London.
Yeah, and he, like, buries, like,
Something.
I think it looked like a bag full of money.
I mean, that's, I would guess, but
Yeah.
that might
Who
end
know-
up
who
being
knows?
like a,
He's burying
like
a bag.
Gun kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's already filthy and covered in mud.
Yeah, it's
Looking
like pissing
terrifying.
rain.
Yeah. And the first thing he does is, when he arrives, is visits his father's corpse.
Yeah, that's like the
Before it's
first
buried.
scene. So
Yeah.
the corpse has 2 coins on the eyes, and he takes the coins,
Right.
and then just like pieces out, and that's like basically how the show cold opens.
Yes. I believe we cut to the credits after he's already attended his dad's funeral.
Yeah,
Am I
it
mistaken?
carries on for a minute if memory serves.
So he shows up at his dad's funeral, and everyone's like,
Holy shit, it's a ghost.
Yeah.
This dude's supposed to be dead.
yeah, yeah.
So his half-sister,
Yes.
to unbury the lead slightly from later.
Una Chaplin, Charlie Chaplin's granddaughter.
Okay, yeah.
She's there with her husband, as is this, like, shady-looking dude, who we'll find out his name is Thoit.
The lawyer.
His father's lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically Hardy shows up, acts kind of weird, and puts the coins in, like, a
donation box.
yes, and
yeah.
then walks back out just
Yeah.
to sort of make a scene.
Yeah, and everyone like promptly loses their shit.
Yeah.
And they make a big point. The lawyer comes up and asks if they paid the extra like 2 shillings to have the father buried slightly deeper so that the grave robbers won't like snatch him, essentially.
And my inference was that those were the 2 shillings that Hardy took,
Yeah.
based on how things play out later.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Okay, we get an atmospheric credit sequence with a bunch of drowning bodies and
Yeah.
sort of a curious bit of score that was almost Elfman-esque.
Yeah, it's strange and like very light for what is essentially like a credit montage of people drowning, like you just said. So like it's like a strange juxtaposition, I think, purposefully, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But
Some of them in shackles, which I think will be a thing that pays off.
and I mean, I'm assuming that all right, so a slave ship is in play at some point, and I'm
Yes.
assuming that like that shit is going down. So like Tom Hardy might have some serious water-based trauma issues coming down the pipeline.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah, so that's what I'm imagining that's going to connect to, but it certainly struck me as surprising, like many aspects of this show.
Oh, there is some interesting stuff at the father's funeral. So Hardy shows up to that, acts like a total nut. Oh, he also doesn't pray in church when everyone else does. They're like, bow your head and pray, and he just keeps his head up like, nah, man,
No,
I'm at
that's
the
not
devil.
my scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when they're graveside,
God, what is he doing?
I don't know how to like characterize like the language he's speaking in.
I
I don't know
recognize
how
it.
we're supposed to read it. Is it supposed to be? I don't think it's supposed to be like an African language.
I mean, it
it
could
could
be.
be.
It seemed like he was doing some sort of witchcrafty stuff. He's got.
I feel like it's playing a
if
lot more.
anyone's listening and knows, please correct us so we don't sound so ignorant. But
Yeah.
he's like sprinkling dust over
And
the
he
body
rubs-
and rubbing shit on his face.
He rubs shit on under one of his eyes, like a red dust powder.
Yeah, like
which-
almost like a war paint kind of thing.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, I think you're left to read it very ambiguous, because you're not given any other contextual clues with, like, what it might be. It's just hard to not be like, oh shit, is this going to be, like, a real, like, problematic-y show with, like, him being marooned in Africa, and, like...
Well, that's what we were saying, is, like, it seemed like it was going to be a bit Tarzan-y. So that's where he's coming from Africa. That's where he was assumed dead.
Like, we were basically assuming it was, like, Tom Hardy does, like, gritty Tarzan.
Yeah, black metal Tarzan.
Yeah.
And we know from, like, the promos and stuff, and those pictures where his dick popped out that were, like, paparazzi snaps, that he's covered in, like, crazy tattoos. And you can see some of them under his, like, wardrobe.
I saw all of them in that photo.
Well, no, I know, but in this first episode, they sort of, like...
They don't make, like, a big thing of it. It's just like,
But you
he
can
rolled up his
tell
sleeve.
He's, like, a weird-looking dude for Victorian...
Like, he would look very strange, and you'd be like, what the fuck is that thing coming out the top of your collar?
Right, the year is, what, 1814?
Yes.
And he looks like he could be a barista
Yeah,
down the
dude.
street from here. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, I don't think that many people had neck tats in 1814.
Not a lot.
No. And he cuts a weird figure apart from everyone else on the show.
Yeah.
He's got his crazy haircut.
With, like, the weird, like, just chunks missing.
Yeah, it's like he went straight from the set of Mad Max, but had time to grow a goatee.
Dude, everything about his performance in this feels so from the same cloth as Mad Max in a lot of ways to me.
It's like, it's Mad Max, but with the accent from Bronson.
Yeah, but he does, like, the
You know,
non-verbal
the
shit
weird
that he does in
grunty
Mad
stuff.
Max. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's also very, like, Morrison Batman, like, the, like, and, like,
Yeah,
like, exactly, like, the not word verbal acting that Tom Hardy excels at. He's incredible at it.
He's very good.
He does not need words to convey what he's thinking. Okay, so...
Oh, but I just also want to mention he's got that crazy trench coat.
Yes.
It's got the high collar that is almost Bane-esque, and the big top hat. And
Yeah.
all black, and it's like leather gloves. And
Yeah,
big
like
boots.
we were talking about earlier, he creates a interesting silhouette, and you were saying that the costume idea was his?
He designed the silhouette specifically.
Okay,
It's
so
in
that
the
it's very...
article with Vulture that mentions that, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, but so after the funeral, there's a wake at a bar.
Yes.
Where we get some more insight into both his half-sister's husband and also the lawyer, Thoit.
Yeah.
And the lawyer tries to track him down.
Under the guise of taking a piss. And then we get a really gross scene around, like, a bunch of butchers.
In an alleyway.
Where he's, like, pretending to pee. And Tom Hardy, like, comes over and he's like, I don't hear you peeing.
Yeah, basically.
In so many words.
But the gist of it is that Thoit was his dad's lawyer and was in the process of negotiating a sale of... Well, he's the executor of the will, is the main thing, right?
Yes.
And he's like, sorry, there isn't anything left for you. And Tom
Your dad was a fucking maniac.
Right, everyone keeps telling him, like, dude, your dad went crazy.
He was like trying to talk to you, like over the waves. Like he would go out, like basically he suffered from madness for years.
Yes.
But he's the sole inheritor of his dad's will, which is a shitty island.
Right, but he makes it sound like it's not very much at all. And
Right.
Tom Hardy knows better. Mm-hmm. By the way, Tom Hardy's character's name is James Delaney.
Yeah.
So he's like, no, I know better. I know all about this land. It's called the Nootka Sound.
Right.
And it was supposed to be sold... Well, they were hoping that it would be inherited by... The assumption on people's parts, I should say, before getting too far ahead into spoiler territory. And there will be
Copious spoilers. Yeah.
That it was assumed that the daughter would inherit this property.
Because he was dead. Well, it would be the husband, right?
I guess so.
But, like, because of her, he would then assume the property.
Yeah.
Hence his general pithiness and disagreeability in every matter in this episode.
Yeah, and before we meet the other baddies, we should mention that there's a strange interaction between Tom Hardy and his half-sister.
Oh, yeah, where it's like, and I still love you. Tom Hardy
she's
to
like
her.
about to leave the bar, and he like kind of grabs her, and he's like, You should know I still love you. Not a good impression, but you know he's doing that weird Tom
Yeah,
Hardy
you
thing.
put the sexy on it, Jason,
Yeah.
which is what needed to be conveyed.
He drizzled that Tom Hardy syrup all over.
Yeah,
that
it's
line
like
delivery.
it's not a vibe you generally want drizzled on a sister.
Yeah.
It's just it feels very wrong.
Or it's like something like when a crazy man grabs you off the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Tells you know, about the voices.
It's a very curious moment, and at this point, we don't know that they're half sisters. We discover that later.
Yeah. Half siblings, not
Half siblings, half sisters. Not a spoiler for later.
We
They're
assume
not half
they're
sisters.
full siblings.
Yes.
But already you get a little bit of weird sort of incesty vibes.
Yeah, kind of from Jump Street.
So at this point, you don't blame her husband for being a little skeeved out.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of rumors flying about him, which I think we've
We're about
started.
to learn about it.
But that starts getting alluded to pretty early.
Yeah, they seed it throughout the episode, and then we get a few drips and drabs as to what that exactly might be.
Yeah.
But our next big scene is with the, ostensibly what I assume to be the villains of the piece.
Yeah.
The East India Trading Company.
They're the old rich white dudes.
Yes. Led by Jonathan Price, as
Yeah.
you mentioned, from Brazil.
I believe I said the dude from Brazil.
It's like the girl from Ipanema.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah, I'm sure he. Also, the man of G.I. Joe 2, if we're just gonna be assholes.
Oh, he's really good in that, though.
But yeah, he's incredible in G.I. Joe 2. Like, I will cast aspersions on everyone save for him in that movie. Because he brings it down.
So, but they're having a conversation about this quagmire that they're in.
Yeah. Which is being recorded for prosperity, but there's a rule where if you want some shit off the record, you raise your hand.
Yeah.
So they get to write their own history, essentially, here.
Yes. And so what are they saying? They're like, who is this James Delaney?
And then we get one of my favorite cliches, like straight out of Jack Reacher, where it's like, let me tell you how fucking badass James Delaney is. And they really belabor the point in a way that
It was
adore. The only
so
thing that
good.
would have been better is if he like kicked in the door after they finished talking about how fucking crazy and badass he was.
Like threw like a tomahawk into
Yeah,
the
exactly.
wall. Yeah, so the first guy is like, you ought to remember him. You were like his commander at, East India Trading Military School. Didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, like, and he's just like, oh, I'm old.
I forgot. And they're like going through their record. It's like perfect marks. Like, he was
Yeah,
like,
but it's for like marksmanship. Like, just all this shit.
yeah, it's like, oh wow, he was the perfect soldier.
Yeah.
And they're like, what happened next? And
Which
they're like,
really made me wonder what, like, is that really what a scorecard, like, you're, like,
long-handed quill.
yeah, just like, exemplary.
I mean, I don't know, but I loved it.
I did too.
And then it just starts getting better and better. Then he's like, well, then things went a little off the rails. And it's like, I can't tell you how many necks were broken. Great line.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm paraphrasing. Then he says that there's like a ship that exploded in an experiment involving mashed potatoes and gasoline.
He fought a bear.
Yeah, very casually, he's like, he fought a bear.
Yeah, I think you asked me like 4 minutes later. He's like, did they say he fought a bear? And I was like, yeah, I'm so glad you asked.
And then basically like, and then he fucked off to Africa. We lost track of him.
Yeah, and he was presumed dead because he was on a slave ship that went down.
I think we might find that out from the next guy. Because then he's like,
Yeah.
okay, Africa Bureau. What you got?
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, unlike that guy, I bring only the facts. It's like he was on this ship, and then he was on this ship, and this ship went down.
And they bring up this is where it really gets a lot hairier with the whole, like, there are rumors, but the
Right.
Africa Bureau guy is basically like, I don't want to tell you about that.
Rumors, and then he's like,
Jonathan Price.
This is like, fucking tell me.
Yeah.
And then he raises his hand.
And then we
see
cut.
it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then I think next is when we
This is when he goes.
realize that this show is sort of Batman.
Yes, exactly. Because he goes to where his crazy ass dad was living.
Yeah.
And his crazy ass dad has like a cool butler who drinks a shitload of brandy.
And they have like the greatest like.
It's a
cheeky
total
rapport.
like Master Bruce.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it is
That's, like,
so that vibe.
giving each other a bunch of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. And then they have some brandy down by the fireplace, and we start to learn some interesting exposition.
Yeah, where Hardy knows a bunch of stuff about his mom and childhood that he...
And the property, the Nootka Sound, that
That-
is part of his will that the East India Trading Company wants desperately.
But that he was not supposed to know because, like, this butler was clearly a confidant for
Yes.
his pops.
But what we find out is that his dad, in the throes of madness, would, like, stand on the shore and, like, try and communicate with his son in Africa?
Yes.
And Hardy's like, yeah, it worked.
Yeah, I fucking heard him.
And you're like, okay. So here's the things that Hardy knows that he's not supposed to know, that are, like, deep, dark family secrets. That his mom is from the Nootka tribe.
Yes.
That the property is in America, North America, specifically.
Yeah, we'll get to why that's very
Fascinating,
pertinent later.
A little close to home. He knows his mom and the property are purchased for gunpowder by his dad. So his mom is not an English woman.
Yeah.
His mom is a Native American. And is that all we learn?
He also, like, threatens his butler to not talk about his mom when he's, like, drinking brandy, which is just a great moment.
Yeah, he's able to, like, turn... almost every scene ends with him making things just a little scary at the end.
Yeah, it's like a consistently, like, modulated performance in that way, where he comes in like fucking Dracula all the time. You know what I
Yes.
mean? He comes in just like a lingering fart you didn't realize got laid a while ago.
Well, I mean, or he makes, like, a grand spooky entrance, but it's like... almost every scene ends with him, like, turning on somebody either slightly or, like, suddenly.
Yeah.
Just to be like, and don't fuck me.
Yeah.
You're like, I believe you, dude.
But he feels almost like a universal monster and just how he, like, inhabits spaces so far. And, like, that
yeah.
again goes back to that silhouette thing. I'm
Yes.
curious how they're going to keep up with that.
And is the next thing... I mean, we're going a little out of order, I'm sure, but, like, when the Batman-ness ramps up is when he's like, hey, where's the key to my dad's...
He goes to his dad's former workspace, which has been commandeered by a prostitute who's running sort of a makeshift, like...
a madam.
a madam... It's like a fuck den / opium den.
I guess so.
Because there were some benches that didn't look, like, ideal for sex. They looked ideal for opium binging. So I think it was, like, a combo, you know?
And a surprise...
Work that space.
Surprise appearance by Frank Potente.
Yeah.
From...
Run, Lola, run!
And the Bourne first two movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically like, okay, now he has his bat cave. He kicks all the hookers out. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, some more, like, interesting, like, cock teasing of, like, what is this dude's, like, dark secrets is, the sister is writing him a letter trying to compel him to give her the property, I believe, right?
Yeah, that sounds
And
right.
the husband's like, you should be telling him to give it to me. He's like this super controlling asshole. I can't wait for Tom Hardy to like, cut his head off or something.
I'm sure he's gonna have some sort of horrendous comeuppance.
But basically what he intimates in very loaded racial language is like, hey, this guy's been in Africa. He's a savage.
Yeah.
And he all but says that, like,
He's
Tom Hardy's a cannibal.
Cannibal. Yeah.
Which, you know...
How the
may
fuck
or-
is this information coming back? If everyone thinks he's dead, why does everyone know all these rumors about him?
I mean, we may yet learn.
I'm assuming that's the case.
Or it's just their ingrained racism and
Sure.
assumptions.
But
Or they're trying to, like, you know, Taria's name from afar in case he comes back.
It seems weird since everyone assumes he's dead, and yet simultaneously there were all these rumors that went around about him. I'm just confused about how that's gonna play itself out. But
We shall see.
we shall see. Yeah.
Yeah, so in so many words, he's like, I think your brother eats flesh.
Yeah.
And she makes pains to say, half-brother.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, interesting. Then Tom Hardy, as he is wont to do on and off the screen, walking around with a dog.
That dog loves Tom Hardy.
And this guy, not so, you know, not suspiciously at all, is like, hey, those dogs eat corpses that jump off that bridge over there. They don't like people. This one likes you a lot. You a witch.
Yeah.
But it turns out these guys know each other.
Yeah.
It's this dude named Ibbotson, who I recognized after about 5 minutes as one of the two goons from the beginning of Batman '89.
Yeah.
I think he's the one he's like don't live on without it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you are correct about that.
Oh, and I think he's the one that gets like, I want to tell your friends I'm Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that guy. He's like, turns out he knows Tom Hardy already. He's like, hey, you know what? Remember that kid you left behind? We went to Africa. They asked me to take care of. Could use some child support, man.
Yeah.
And Hardy's like, I'll pay you. I'll fucking pay you.
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem very, like, psyched to see this kid.
Yes, that's true. What's the scene that goes in between him delivering said payoff?
I'm trying to remember. Gosh. It's like we didn't just watch this episode.
I know, mere moments ago.
Brother, well, dead air is always good. I don't know, I think it's not him getting the letter from his half-sister. I feel like he gets some money from somewhere, am I wrong?
Well, is that presumably the money that he buried earlier, which pays for his child support?
Be, and that just happened off screen?
Yeah, and, like, point being, in this moment, like, we see him go back to that dude who's been taking care of his kid that he ditched years ago before he went to Africa, and deliver what is clearly a hearty payout to this dude to take care of him for the past, present, and future.
Exactly.
And then he sees the kid, like, fucking baling hay or whatever behind the barn, and he's like, do you want to, like, see him or talk to him? And Hardy's like, nope, never again, and pieces the fuck out.
Yeah, but he says something like, I think, if the kid has any sense to him, unlike me, something along those lines.
He requests that dude, like, hold out a stipend, essentially, for the kid if he's as, like, foolish as he was. So it's like, if he has the wild tendencies of Hardy's character, like, save some money for him from the huge bounty that he just delivered to this dude who's been taking care of the kid.
Yes.
And then one scene we need to talk about is the weird one where he's having those visions of what I assume is the, like...
Yeah, let's get into that. So it turns out that he presumably paid some grave robbers to exhume his dad's body.
Yes.
Like, it was his plan for it to be buried so shallow that it could be exhumed.
Yeah.
And he takes it to this guy who's like a sleazy, what's the word?
Mortician autopsy guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he does like an off-the-books autopsy, because I guess the dad was buried with that one.
Hence the reason that he was pulled up by the grave robbers specifically for the purpose of this autopsy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hardy sort of walks away towards some other corpses that are lying about and starts having this really weird vision. It's not dissimilar from Mad Max Fury Road.
It's very much in line with that.
And he's like screaming at the corpses.
He's having like visions from the dead who are being like, this was your fault. And he's like, I have no fear to give you.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah.
This is actually the second vision he's had, because he had one earlier in the episode that was of like a woman covered in feathers coming out of a lake.
Oh yeah, it with strong witch vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Very strong witch vibes. I've totally spaced on that. Yeah.
Yeah, so he keeps having these like kind of mental breaks.
Yeah, they're very of a piece, and it like bears out the idea that like, oh, he's insane like his father, and this is like a familial thing.
Yeah, but what we learn is that his dad was actually being driven insane and poisoned slowly with arsenic.
Yes.
Thanks to the autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're getting our Shades of Hamlet vibe.
Well, yeah, and presumably this is the work of the
Dutch East Indies Company, right?
Yeah, totally. And so, okay, we know that he has a meeting scheduled with those guys.
Yeah.
We also know that his half-sister is trying to get her husband out of the house. He's frustrated because he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill your brother.
Yeah.
And she's like, why? I think that was actually in the earlier scene. But he's like, he's a savage, yada yada.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's like, get out of the house. And she pricks herself doing a needlepoint. Long story short, once her hubby's gone, she writes another letter.
Yeah.
To James, which will come into play in the episode's close.
Yes.
But we know that he has a meeting with fate, with the East India Company. They're going to try and convince him to sell the Nootka Sound.
Yeah, and the way that they try and do that is to at first lean on his loyalty as a citizen.
Well, no, but we have to get to why they lean on his loyalty as a citizen.
Oh, like why that territory is so valuable?
Yeah,
that
first they
comes
were like,
first.
They just
yeah,
fucking outright buy it, and he's like, I'm no fucking idiot.
Yeah, his explanation is so good.
Basically, it's in the closing, phase of the Revolutionary War with America.
Yeah, and England and America are in like
They're about to end
exploratory
negotiations.
talks to like end the war, and this seemingly worthless rock of an island is actually basically like the mouth.
Vancouver.
It's Vancouver, so it's like the mouth to China, and like just a huge spot for trade and any number of other factors.
And Hardy knows it's worth a ton to the crown.
And the way he delivers this is like very sort of like coy with like a lot of ums. It's like, so it's like this, which is like a fascinating actor decision.
It's great, but he's also kind of like menacing the whole time too.
Oh, it's very terrifying.
And arrogant and a lot of things. So he knows it's worth a bunch to both sides, and he's not going to give it to them, even though they're like, "You're an English citizen."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I have no sense to me."
Mm-hmm.
He just kind of owns the room, and he's like, "Fuck you guys, peace out." And then I believe once he's left the room, what do they?
They're basically like, well, he won't listen to reason, so you deal with it, which feels like a go kill that motherfucker.
And he's glancing to the African Bureau guy.
Yeah, which
that's
I'm like,
what the camera cuts to. So I'm to assume that he's going to create the plan that
to assassinate this guy to get the island and
Yeah.
somehow steal the deed. Yeah.
I mean, now the plot is set in motion for the next 7 episodes.
Right. Because they want this deed so that they have that ship, essentially, for future trade relations. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Sure do. There's also this whole bit about him being like, "I know the evil that you do."
Because I used to be a part of it.
Yes, it's like rape, pillage.
Yeah, so he was like a slaver, right?
I mean,
I assume so. So this whole show, I imagine, is like some Lamont Cranston shadow shit, trying to like amend for the evil that he's done, because you can see the evil in men's hearts. So basically, it's like, I really am fascinated by how this show has its own vibe, but also feels like an amalgamation of a bunch of other shit that I have seen in like
pulpy stew.
Yeah, it's like a couple dollops of like Batman and just like a garnish of Shadow and
with
a bit of Nick.
Yeah, it's got the grisly sort of texture that the Nick had in its period setting.
Yeah.
It's set about
and the
100 years
pulpiness
earlier,
of
but-
like oh goodness.
Edgar Rice Burroughs.
There's I wouldn't say that, because that's almost more, it's got more of like a macabre streak.
It's a little gothic.
What's the one with Eva Green? That's what I'm trying to. I've watched like 4 or 5 episodes of that.
Penny Dreadful.
It's got like, it's not quite that level of like pulp engagement, because this one's holding you back a bit.
Yes.
So
it doesn't have like Frankenstein, but it does perhaps have witchcraft. Or
I think it's
elements.
going to like explore that shit, because apparently, if his dad was talking to him through the ocean. And
they present that as factual, so
that seems just like canon. At having seen 1 episode of this, so who knows? Like it's almost like Twin Peaks vibe, where I don't know what goes yet because I don't understand what the rules are.
Right.
And I think it's obfuscating that point very purposefully to be like the like stodgy Dutch East Indies company guys like don't know what the fuck his deal is.
Was it Dutch East Indies Company the same thing as the East India Trading Company?
I don't know.
We'll
I'm
have to
pleading
research that
ignorance
between
right off the bat.
Now in the next episode.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, and the last scene is him alone in Wayne Manor, essentially. We'll call it Delaney House. Reading the second letter from his half-sister, where she's like, "Hey, James, the last letter you got from me was basically rewritten by my husband.
Yeah.
He's a dick.
Yeah.
He doesn't know about us. Please keep all our dark secrets to yourself." Essentially.
Yeah.
Which can, cut to credits. And this can segue right into predictions, because you had a good one right off the bat.
I mean, I assume that kid, Tom Hardy's like, I don't want to see that fucking kid again, is like their child that they had, which drove him to Africa.
Incestually.
Yeah, so it was like the shameful union, like, drove him to go far away to Africa, where he was presumed dead, and yet all these, like, rumors sprouted out from him. So I assume that that's their kid, and that she, like, somehow got married to this other dude as a means of, like, saving her honor or whatever. Assuming that was probably the idea in that time period.
Yeah, one other detail that I'm sure will be perhaps explained in greater detail is the fact that they said that his mother was insane too.
Yes.
And that they said that, like, he had his mother's insanity in him.
Right.
So now that we know that his mother was a Native American woman that apparently passed as an English woman.
Yes.
Because
they renamed her. She had
an
an
asylum.
Yes.
Yes, she had a real name was Salish, and I can't remember what they said her name.
Yeah,
was
her
yet.
fake English name was, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's going to be material to mine there. I don't know exactly what it is.
Right. Yeah.
I think we'll get definite flashbacks to him in Africa.
I have no doubt of that fact. I'm really curious about, during that, like, second hallucination scene, what the deal is with the, like, there's, like, a slave.
Specifically one slave that, like,
One
stands
slave.
up and confronts him.
Yeah, exactly. Who I'm assuming is going to come back in one capacity or another, probably. Like, this was someone he had relations with on the ship. Yeah, there's a lot that I am just very curious about going forward. My biggest prediction is that is his kid with his half-sister. Do you think he's dead?
Is that come like back to life? Like,
yeah,
literally dead?
Yeah.
I don't know at this point. I wonder. I hope it's not like a True Detective season 1 situation where they're kind of blue balling you with all this like mysticism.
This is leaning into it way harder than that show did.
That's true.
Like, if this show does not have supernatural elements going on, I'm gonna be shocked.
Okay, I'll take that as a,
you know
as
what
a
I
hard
mean?
prediction. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think a lot will depend on exactly what went down in Africa.
Yeah, which, ooh, boy.
And exactly what his mission is here. Because he honestly doesn't actually seem that interested in money. He just knows that it has value.
It seems like he just wants to, like, fuck around with the powers that be.
Yeah.
Which I'm very intrigued by as just a premise of, like, a dude being a, like, thorn in the paw of, like, British powerful elites. Like, that's funny to me.
Yeah, he has it out for the Empire for, I'm guessing, a very
reason.
Specific reason, yeah. So I think it's probably more of a revenge thing in the end.
Maybe it's just a grander, like, he realizes how much of a shitbag he was as, like, a slaver and is, like, trying to, like...
redeem himself by fucking over
the Grand Empire.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty tight. Like, if that's his little game plan, just be like, spite fucking this empire, I'm perfectly good with that.
Me too. Anything else we want to note about this episode in particular? We should say it was directed by this guy Christopher Nyholm, who I believe was one of either the creators or one of the main directors of The Killing, the
original one?
The original one, which is a, Swedish production?
Yes, that sounds right. It looks beautiful.
Gorgeous.
They clearly spent a pretty penny on this show.
Yeah, it's like HBO level good looking.
Yeah, but I think it also does a nice job of kind of like being like, all right, let's try and be economical and just like be in like a smaller environment that's a little cheaper.
Yeah, but I wouldn't know.
It doesn't look cheap. Like,
no.
The production detail is like really impressive.
It's like movie quality good, is what I'm saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
And very beautifully shot. And it was written by Stephen Knight. Yeah. Looking forward to Ep 2.
Yeah, I'm very curious in general about how they meter out information about like what he's been doing, what his deal is, and what is going on with the supernatural elements of the show.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be very curious to see.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm excited to take this journey with you.
Same. Till next week, I guess.
Yeah, and then between whenever this goes up and next week, I'll probably set up a Twitter account.
Okay.
So if anyone's actually listening, they can tweet at us or comment on the YouTube upload or whatever to ask questions or comments or share theories.
Tell us how wrong we were about any number of factual things.
I would love that.
Yeah, please, like, make us smarter.
I'll try and do my own fact checking, but yeah.
There will be gaffes.
There will be gaffes, there will be flubs. And I'm guessing in this show there will be blood.
Only time will tell.
Okay, yeah. Let's wrap it up.
There
Till
it
next
is.
time.
All right, bye.
See ya.
This has been a podcast presented by
Hard to find media.
Subscribe to Hard to Find Media on youtube.com/Hard to Find Media Network. This shit is free. Share it. Blast it.